Morning of the 4th day.
1. Decapitation. Part 3. I wonder if that was the right thing to do, I mumbled as I played with Kunagisa's hair. She said it was too heavy, all tied up high like that, and wanted me to redo it. Here I had thought it was adorable, but if she didn't like it, I had no choice. Everybody had since split up, and the two of us had gone back to Kunagisa's room.
I think it's okay. It's pretty much what I had in mind. Akane must be kinda grateful, too. It's a way better idea than continuing that unproductive bickering anyway.
I wonder. As the one who suggested the idea in the first place, I couldn't imagine Akane was too happy about it. I feel a little guilty. It might well have been the only solution, but I couldn't help but wonder if there was some other way. All done.
Thank you.
Kunagisa crawled over to her computer rack and sat down with her back to me. Then, she switched on the power and started typing away. I feel like we've wronged Akane.
Maybe. But some things can't be avoided, you know, Yu-chan?
After breakfast, Akane had gone off to my room on her own 2 feet. It had been decided that Akari and the others would deliver meals to her directly, and that she would have to call them from the room phone every time she wanted to use the bathroom. Akane's only request was for a reading lamp, so that she could pass the following 6 days reading books she had brought. 6 days. Objectively speaking, the room wasn't a particularly bad environment, but the door couldn't be unlocked from the inside, and the window was way high up, so there was virtually no means of escape. In that sense, it really was imprisonment. 6 days. It really was too long to be locked up. If only Iria would call the police, we wouldn't have to do all of this. It's like she's trying to cover up the incident altogether.
But Iria is right, you know? If we called the police, they'd blame Akane and close the case right there. Or even if they didn't convict her, she'd be treated as a suspect. I mean, wasn't that what you were trying to avoid? Seriously, one of the 7 fools becoming a murder suspect?
Do you know a lot about the ER3, Tomo?
I've got a few acquaintances from over there, but I'm sure you know more than I do.
The 7 fools are not. I doubt Akane enjoys criminal immunity.
But in that sense, it would be even worse of a situation for me, not to mention Yayoi and Maki, who are both well respected. Nobody needs a scandal like this to deal with. Of course, the same goes for Iria, so it's only natural that she isn't calling the police.
Natural, huh? It was probably the island itself that was unnatural, but judging from Iria's demeanor, I got the feeling that there was more to the story, like she had some more fundamental reason for not wanting to call the cops. Do you suppose she has some specific reason for disliking the police? I asked.
Well, why don't you ask her?
I doubt she'd tell us.
Yeah, maybe not. Anyway, why worry about it? Once this Aikawa character Iria's so crazy about gets here, everything will be solved. It's just another 6 days.
Sure, but Iria was the mistress of the island, and if she said no police, there was no going against her. For what it was worth, there would probably be no more murders with Akane locked up. Still... Say, Tomo,
What, Ichan?
I want to ask a favor.
I accept. What is it?
Would you be able to do something about that locked room?
I don't know. But for you, I'd try.
There was no need to spend the next 6 days just sitting around. I was the one who had proposed the course of action in the first place, so I had a duty to give the case some serious thought.
Yup.
Kunigisa said.
If we can figure this case out quick, we won't have to keep Akane locked up, whether she did it or not.
She swiveled her chair around to face me.
Here!
She beckoned me closer. I walked over to the computers as told.
For the time being, I've typed up everyone's alibis.
Kanemi Ibuki, murdered. Akane Soniyama. She had no alibi before or after the quake. Tomo Kunigisa. She was alibied before the quake by me, Hikari, Maki, and Shinya. She had no alibi after the quake, but her medical condition removed her from the suspects list. Yayoi Sashirono. She was alibied before the quake by Iria and Rei. She had no alibi after the quake. Akari Chika. She had a tentative alibi from Teriko, and no alibi after the quake. Hikari Chika. She was alibied before the quake by me, Hikari, Maki, and Shinya. She had no alibi after the quake. Teriko Chika. She had a tentative alibi from Akari, but no alibi after the quake. Shinya Sakaki. He was alibied before the quake by me, Tomo, Maki, and Hikari. He was also alibied by Maki after the quake. Rei Honda. She was alibied before the quake by Iria and Yayoi, but only had a tentative alibi from Iria after the quake. Maki Himina. She was alibied before the quake by me, Tomo, Hikari, and Shinya. She was also alibied by Shinya after the quake. Iria Akagami. She was alibied before the quake by Rei and Yayoi, but only had a tentative alibi from Rei after the quake.
Look about right?
I understand the O's and X's, but what are the deltas?
Akane was right about family testimonies. Iria, Rei, Akari, Hikari, and Teriko are pretty much family, so theirs need to be checked out. But these alibis, I really don't know about them.
She scrolled down the screen and checked the chart one more time. For now, I said, let's ignore the possibility of an accomplice, as well as the issue of the family testimonies. In that case, the one we can remove from the suspect list for sure are Shinya and Maki, plus Rei and Iria. 4 people down, 7 left. If Shinya's testimony is accurate, then the locked room with the paint becomes a problem. But if it's a lie, that means only Akane could have done it.
I can't imagine why Shinya would lie, though,
objected Kunigisa. Well, it could have been a misunderstanding, or something rather than a lie. Well, how about that? I was starting to sound like Iria. But I insisted, Akane really is the prime suspect here, objectively speaking.
Yeah, you can't help but think that, looking at this chart, no matter how fair or sympathetic you are, it doesn't change the fact that she is the only one without any smidgen of an alibi. If that weren't the case, she probably wouldn't have accepted this whole seclusion idea.
Yeah, for sure. So, Tomo, Do you think Akane did it?
I wouldn't say that. Like she argued herself, there's no evidence. You can't decide who the culprit is by elimination alone. We haven't even examined Kanami's body yet.
Right. And there's the fact that it was a locked room.
But if you take that into account, nobody could have done the crime. Ichan, you have any ideas about that?
Maybe, I said, as I pondered. I might figure something out after a little while. How about you, Tomo?
I've got tons of ideas,
she said.
Just need to give it a little more thought and it should all fall into place. Oh, and Ichan, whether or not Shinya's testimony is true, I think the murder happened after the earthquake.
Huh? Why?
That painting of you. Do you really think she could have finished that before the earthquake? I don't think so.
Well, it was tough to say. Kanami was pretty damn fast when it came to painting. But if what Kunigisa said was true, then it was all the more certain that we were dealing with a locked room. That wasn't the most helpful development.
And there's the headless body itself, Ichan.
I nodded. Regardless of who killed her, why would they cut her head off? They say, I noted, to beware of swapped identities when a body shows up with no head, but I don't suppose there's any need to suspect that here. There were 12 people. One's been decapitated, and now there are 11, and we know exactly who and where those 11 people are.
Yuppie! If it was one of those 3 maid sisters who got killed, it would have been a real problem, huh? But with Kanami, there's probably no need to worry about it. If there's someone else on this island, that's a different story.
Let's not consider that notion either. If there'd been a 13th, or maybe even nth person beyond the dozen of us, all this narrowing down of suspects and alibi searching would be pointless. I don't know what this great detective coming in 6 days will have to say about it, but for now, let's just worry about the 11 people we know about.
Yeah,
Kunigisa said, gaping at the ceiling.
If we consider the possibility of an accomplice or some kind of remote trickery, only you and I can be taken off the suspect list.
Why me too?
'Cause I trust you.
She answered, flipping over.
Still, why did it have to be decapitated? Is there any reason other than body switching for it? I wonder. And it wasn't like that was the cause of death.
True. If it was, there wouldn't have been so little blood. It would have been more like a river of blood. But at a glance, there didn't appear to be any stabbing wounds or anything. So maybe she was poisoned or strangled. I mean, just to speculate.
I wonder if she went down easy.
Probably. Her legs didn't work, and though her eyesight had been restored, it definitely wasn't perfect. If he snuck up on her, or even strode up to her, the murder itself must have been easy, and cutting off the head wouldn't be much of a challenge either. As long as you didn't hesitate, it would only take a few minutes, and the culprit, mostly likely, hadn't been hesitant. That was my gut feeling. There's no clear motive either, I said. Why did Kanami have to be murdered?
Nobody has to be murdered. But yeah, I wonder why. Aside from Shinya, everyone met Kanami here, right? But maybe that's not the case. Maybe somebody actually had some connection with her before coming here. It wouldn't be so strange.
I guess you could presume just about anything on that subject. In which case, there was no point in presuming anything.
Well, let's just worry about these other details first and figure out who knows who later on.
How are we going to do that?
Who do you think you're talking to?
She grinned at me impishly. Of course, this blue-haired girl had a backstory, so to speak.
Now then, shall we do a crime scene investigation?
She picked up her nearby digital camera. Part 4. On the way back to Kanami's room, we passed by Yayoi. I meant to greet her, but the mood was, awkward, so I missed my chance. She continued walking in the opposite direction. We had passed right by each other, but it was like she hadn't even noticed us.
I wonder what she's up to,
Kunagisa said.
Weird.
She looked kind of worried about something. Or maybe just in deep thought?
Yep. Since she came from that way, maybe she was looking around Kanami's room. Maybe she had the same idea as us. Solve the case quick so we can all go home.
I wonder. She's been here the longest, right? I doubt she'd suddenly want to just pack up and leave.
Dunno about that. Personally, I hate islands where murders take place.
Right. Don't know about that. Just before we'd all scattered from the dining room, Iria had laid down a rule.
Until Aikawa gets here in 6 days, nobody leaves the island. We're all suspects here, myself included.
In other words, Akane wasn't the only one being imprisoned. It wasn't just a curiosity motivating Kunagisa to dig deeper. She wanted to go home as planned. As loose and lazy as she was strangely anal about her schedule.
Well, either way is good,
she said.
I certainly wouldn't mind if Yayoi solved this case for us.
I don't think that's what she's up to. She had a sort of melancholy, somber vibe about her. Almost like she disposed of evidence or something.
That would certainly suck a lot for us.
Kunagisa eyed me through the digital camera.
Let's hurry up and check it out.
Kanami's door had been left open. You could see the inside of the outward opening door. Nobody seemed to be around. I wondered what everyone else was doing, except Akane, who had presumably been in the storage room. But I decided to set that thought aside for the time being. People will do as they please, insofar as they are allowed. That was true on this island, and it was true anywhere else. The room still smelled like paint thinner, but the paint seemed to mostly be dry by now. Kanami's body remained in the same place it had been this morning, and looked exactly the same. Oh boy. There's something terribly comical about a headless body. What makes dead bodies so creepy and terrifying is that emotionless expression on the face. But with no head to display that face, the creepiness and terror is replaced with a sort of ridiculousness. It's like looking at a screwed-up attempt at a plastic model or something. The marbled river. Kunagisa's tossed coat remained right in the middle. By the way, about that coat, how much was it?
About 10,000 for a pair of them, I'd think.
Dollars?
Nah, yen.
Wow, an average price. I was a little surprised. Well, might as well go inside. I tried to take a step forward, but Kunagisa tugged on my sleeve just like she had this morning. What now?
Try jumping.
Huh?
Come on, it's an experiment. Get a little running start here and see if you can jump the paint river. Your athletic skills aren't so bad, right?
They're not so good either.
Give it a shot.
You got it. I revved myself up a bit and gave my best leap, but as expected, I couldn't clear the river. I landed on both feet, only slightly past the center point. That's all you're gonna get. Kunigisa stepped across, using her coat as a stepping stone.
If you can't do it, Shinya's the only person here who might even have a chance. He's the only other guy and all.
Yeah, but those maids seem pretty able-bodied, to be honest. I mean, they carried all of your luggage, including those PCs in the workstation. Those things ain't light.
But they're all petite, so there's the simple matter of their stride. But then again, people can outperform themselves when push comes to shove. I guess it's kinda hard to say. Now let's see what's going on with Kanami.
Kunigisa approached Kanami's body, camera in hand. Kunigisa seemed to be particularly interested in examining the body, while I was more concerned with Kanami's canvases. There were several lying around, including the cherry blossom picture she had smashed up, as well as the redo. I had to tremble at the sight of it. Even I, who had not so much as a passing interest in art, couldn't deny that I was looking at value itself. And then there was the painting I had modeled for her. Kanami had promised to give it to me, but there was no way I could accept such a thing. The pressure was too much, and I wasn't so insensitive. Though that's probably nonsense. I went to pick up the canvas, but then stopped myself. It might have been bad to leave any fingerprints behind. Then again, it might have not mattered. Huh? Hey, Tomo.
Yeah?
Isn't there something weird about this painting?
You mean that picture of you? What's weird? It's a normal painting.
Kunigisa's taste certainly wasn't normal if she thought about it, but that was beyond the point. Something about the painting was off, in a maddeningly subtle way. It wasn't anything about the picture itself, but somehow it felt absurd. Well, snap a picture of it, will ya? It's bothering me.
Got it. I'm still not finding anything unusual over here.
She appeared to be inspecting Kanami's body. Really? I said, walking over to her.
Yup. I'm no professional, though. The cause of death is still a mystery, and I can't narrow down the time of death either. Without a coroner, it's probably impossible. If only Iria had invited a medical genius here, too. Heil, Herr Dr. Blackjack. Then again, it would probably be pretty hard without the head.
I guess we're not going to figure anything out here after all.
Yup.
Kunigisa lifted up the corpse. Even years ago, she had no qualms about touching a dead body.
Kinda takes me back, you know? It's just like the old days.
Yeah, you're right, but it doesn't feel like that to me. It's like I'm seeing a dead body for the first time all over again. I'm feeling uneasy. An indescribable anxiety. Like when you find a scar on your own body you don't remember having.
It's jamais vu,
Kunigisa told me. It's what?
the opposite of déjà vu. It means you feel like you're doing something for the first time, even though you've really done it many times before. Supposedly it happens when your senses have been numbed.
Then my senses must have been numbed some time ago. A lot of things had happened abroad, too.
Anyway,
Kunigisa said.
There aren't any stab wounds, so maybe she was strangled after all. And then, to hide the bruises, the killer cut her head off.
That sounds crazy. Whatever the killer used to cut the head off, knife, axe, hatchet, whatever it was, why didn't they just use that to kill her?
Maybe they did. There are no stab wounds, but that's just on the body. Maybe they stabbed her in the head.
Hey, yeah, maybe, I said. Speaking of that, where do you suppose the head went? I wonder where the killer took it. I mean, if the killer took it.
Half the island is forest. Maybe they buried it somewhere out there? Or they could have tossed it out to sea. Disposal probably wasn't much of a problem.
Which brings us back to the question, why did the killer cut her head off? But that question was a dead end.
I've got one more question, Ichan. Take a look at this. The head is cut off from the very base of the neck, right? Why is it cut like that? Don't you think that if you were going to decapitate someone, the normal place to make the cut would be around the center of the neck?
The position of the cut was indeed unnaturally low, but I didn't think it was significant. I silently crossed my arms. This crime scene investigation didn't seem like it would yield any clues after all. At best, we had confirmed that the river of paint couldn't be jumped, but that seemed more like a step backwards than progress. Kunigisa went over to the phone stand by the window and picked up the receiver.
Nothing unusual here either.
You thought there would be?
Well, maybe the circuit had been rigged so that calls to this phone would connect to a different phone. But there doesn't seem to be anything wrong on this end. Doesn't look like it's been tinkered with either.
The phone, huh? Say, how'd it go again? What did Kanmi say to Shinya?
The paint spilled, I'm busy working, so don't bother me. Stuff like that. But Shinya should have gone to check on her even if she told him not to. That might seem harsh, but it was his duty as her caretaker.
You're right about that. But there's no use talking about what's already done. And anyway, Shinya would be bearing that burden and his remorse from now on. It wasn't particularly our place to lay the blame on him, and there was no need to do so. It's an irrational world, but it's also a world where we have to take responsibility for our actions, and sometimes we also have to take responsibility for our own lack of action. I wondered aloud, is it possible that they restored the phone back to normal afterwards?
Well, I wouldn't say it's totally impossible, but it practically is. It's not like plugging and unplugging a cord or something.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to look at other possibilities. By which I mean the locked room aspect. So you think I was lying? Suddenly, I heard Shinya's voice from behind me, so I spun around. He stood in the doorway with some kind of orange bag in his hands. But I could hear Kanami's voice for sure. That's no lie. He sounded pretty worn out. Understandably. I'm not saying you lied, Shinya. I don't see the necessity. But is it possible the voice you heard wasn't hers? No, he shot back. I'd known Kanami for a long time. There's no way I would have mistaken her voice. Are you doubting me? It's not like that. There's no reason you would have killed her after all. Who knows? Maybe we weren't on the best of terms. He gave a weak smile. Then he stepped through the dried paint and approached us. Upon closer inspection, it became clear what that orange bag was. It was a sleeping bag. Shinya looked up at me. We can't just leave her here, right? he said. "I got permission from Iria and everything. I've decided to bury her on the mountain out back. It's not like Iria's going to call the police. And this is all her property anyway. Burying Kaname is all I can do now." "We'll help you," I said. He tried to say something, but perhaps realizing the benefit of having 2 extra people with him, he thought better of it. Together, we lifted up Kaname's body and silently stuffed it into the sleeping bag. It goes without saying, but her flesh was completely devoid of warmth. "Shinya, do you have something to dig with? They're supposed to have left out a big shovel by the entrance. Kunigisa, maybe you can carry it for us? Say, is that a digital camera?"
Yup.
Kunigisa nodded.
We have to keep a record of the crime scene for when the master detective shows up. It's not like corpses can assert a right not to be photographed.
That was probably the worst way she could have phrased it, but Shinya responded with a nod and a wry smile. Shinya, about this painting. Kaname's painting. It's fantastic, isn't it? It's the last painting she ever did. But she meant to give it to you, so please, take it. Is it okay? I want to honor her last wishes. Last wishes. Yes, she died, without having accomplished a thing. Get her feet, will you? I'll carry the head in it. Oh. Shinya cut himself off, most likely realizing there was no head to carry. Keeping my mouth shut, I picked up her legs. Shinya no doubt wished he could bury the body with the head, but its whereabouts remained unknown. Either the killer was hiding it somewhere, or it had been tossed in the woods, or thrown into the sea, like Kunigisa said. Holding onto the legs, it occurred to me how heavy corpses are. When people are unconscious and aren't supporting themselves, they're heavier than you'd expect. It probably wasn't impossible for a single person to carry, but 2 people were definitely better. From that point on, none of us spoke. In silence, we lifted her body and left the mansion. In silence, we headed for the mountain in the back. And in silence, we dug a hole. The sleeping bag that held her body was such a cheap-looking orange excuse for a coffin. I couldn't help but find it comical. Maybe I thought the death of a human being is comical, and nothing more. People die. That was something I knew all too well, to a nauseating degree, and Kunigisa did too. And Shinya, being a full-fledged adult, had no doubt been touched by death in the past as well. That's probably why we were all so quiet. Finally, Shinya spoke. You 2 can go back now. I'm going to stay here a little longer. I wanted to say something, but didn't. Pulling on Kunigisa's hand, I left without a word. Maybe Shinya was going to cry. Maybe he wasn't. Either way, we no longer had a reason to linger. After all, we were only strangers.
I wonder if it was okay to just go ahead and bury her,
Kunigisa mused rather belatedly. I think so. Shinya seems to be the only thing she had resembling a loved one, and that's what he wanted to do. And we couldn't just leave her lying in the atelier all week.
True. But...
Say, Tomo, how big a crime do you suppose it is to dispose of a corpse?
You'd probably get less than a 3-year sentence. It would probably be a suspended sentence, too. But you and I are both underage anyway, so no worries. No matter what happens, we can get off with a little money.
What a tasteless conversation. Not that I was looking for a tasteful one. Such nonsense, I muttered. Kunigisa gave me a funny look.